I've watched a lot of YouTube channels teach about keto and the amazing benefits, and then turn around and encourage cheat days. I'm not sure if it's because they fell off of keto or if they had ulterior motives to encourage us to eat off plan. I've also seen other channels where they clearly make money off selling keto products or cookbooks. So I want to know, did you need a recipe on a standard diet? Was every meal that complicated? Because I can honestly say that the only time I used a recipe was when I was baking, because most of us, at least I know I for sure, cook the same meals on repeat when I was doing a standard diet. And the meals that I were cooking, they just weren't that complicated. So about 6 years ago, 6 years, 7 months, I went keto because I had huge inflammation problems, the most recent of which was causing me to not be able to walk, not be able to sit, not to be able to be comfortable at all. And so I decided to do a keto lifestyle because I needed to figure out like my health, and it worked. So I solved my health issues doing keto 9 months ago. So this year I went carnivore. I had already solved the health things I was trying to solve and went carnivore anyway because I learned from Sally Norton and Dr. Chafee that plants that were still in my diet were causing some of the problems that I was still seeing. I've mentioned this before. I would like to see my stomach be flatter. Like I feel like there's still too much there. And I'm not sure if it's visceral or subcutaneous, but I would like it to look more healthy, right? And these two doctors, well, Sally's not a doctor, but Sally pointed out that the avocado and the spices that I was still having in my diet. So the avocado she talked to me about said that if I were to go and pick it directly off a tree, yes, the amount of oxalate in there rather low. But because they pick them to be shipped, they're picking them before they're ripe. And she helped me to see where now the oxalate is still in the fruit at high levels because the plant wasn't ready for it to be picked yet. That means that I'm over oxalating when I eat this stuff and I wasn't aware. Same thing with all of us, she explained. And basically the stuff I was eating. Now, Dr. Chafee took it to another level. He mentioned that he had gotten this book on spices because I was still spicing my meats at that point in time. And basically, spices are the concentrated part of the plant that is like the flavorful part of the plant is the part that's the most toxic. So they're taking these toxic elements and putting them in a bottle and making me. So I'm actually taking the worst parts of the plant to make my food taste fun. Honestly, Wellness Warrior, that didn't make any sense to me. And so after those conversations, I took them out of my diet. And today I accept that I'm a recovering metabolic mess. I have no idea how long it's going to take me to heal. And that's why I'm all about healing by eating healthy every day. If I don't do that, I'm just prolonging the time it will take my body to heal. And the way that my body functions on a very basic level hasn't changed over the course of my existence on this planet. But I look so different than I looked 10 years ago. I feel different than I felt 10 years ago. And it's because of the food that I eat today. And I want to share with you the secret I found to permanent weight loss. And I found the secret 6.5 years ago, right? Because You're gonna see in the video, and this video, right, by the way, is the third video on my channel. I'm so proud of it. And I want to walk you through some of these clips because I want you to see what it is that I actually figured out. Because I've been doing these things, Wellness Warrior. They sum up all the stuff that helped me to stay where I am. And I can honestly say that most of the stuff, I would say 90% of what I said in that first video, I still endorse. And if there's some things to tweak along the way, I'm going to let you know. We gain weight because our insulin levels are high. So the first thing that we need to understand when we're talking about weight gain and the issues that I believe we don't understand is that process of gaining, of storing carbs and therefore also storing fats is being pushed by the number of carbs that we ingest. Okay, so eat more carbs equals store more energy, regardless of the kind of energy that you ingest, whether it's carbs or fats. I honestly think that most people don't understand the severity of that idea. Eat more carbs, and you end up storing more energy on your body. We're constantly hungry because we eat sugar at every meal. And Wellness Warrior, I'm still talking to you. Even on keto, eating sugar at every meal leaves many of us hungry. Why? Because our threshold for sugar might be lower than what we think. So first of all, the threshold for keto, which I say in this video, is actually 50. And the doctors helped us all to understand that because of our metabolic story, most of us are not getting into a ketogenic state at 50. And the doctors help us realize it needs to be down by 20. But can I point out that for myself, 20 was too high. I could not remain. I could not remain in a ketogenic state at 20. And I think that most people don't check, right? You get into your ketogenic state, and then you walk forward in life and you believe that what you're eating now is what it's going to be forever. And I figured out that that was not reality. Thank goodness, because otherwise I would have had the same stumbles that everybody else had of their weight not moving, of their health not improving, and me thinking that keto wasn't working. That wasn't the case. So I had that first stall. And then what I realized was that if I went down under 18, I felt better. So my stall was my pain came back. And I'm also very happy that I have Violet syndrome. And the thing that happens to me is I'm in pain when I overeat my carbohydrates because it doesn't take me long to notice it, first of all, and I don't want it to be there. And I can't say that strongly enough. I do not ever want to be in pain and not be able to walk again because that was horrible. And so therefore, when any pain comes back, I'm paying attention and I'm problem solving immediately. In this case, it was an easy problem solve. Can't be at 18 or above. I need to be 18 and below, or so 17 and a half and below. And so what I did was I took myself down to 10. And doing 10 just ensures that I don't have to worry about it. If I'm eating carbohydrates, it's under 10. My life is simple. Insulin is a hormone, and we all have insulin. It's there to regulate, partially one of the reasons it's there is to regulate our carbohydrates in our system. We can't have too many carbs in our system at any one time. If I remember correctly, so a person has no diabetic issues whatsoever, no sugar issues whatsoever, can have about a teaspoon of sugar in their entire system at any given time and be fine. Like that's the norm. So they try to scare us away from keto with ketoacidosis. But in fact, more people are suffering from high sugar in their blood than they will ever experience ketoacidosis. The excess sugar that causes vision problems, organ failure, amputations are ignored, but we're made to fear ketoacidosis. It's a smokescreen It's a diversion. It's something to make us think that keto isn't the healthier option. The what really bothers me a lot is that most people who are even diabetic are not type 1 diabetics, who are the people at most risk for ketoacidosis. And I don't know if there's another condition that might put you at risk for ketoacidosis. So if there's another condition that you know about, put it in the chat. But I don't think I've ever heard of another condition that would put you at risk for this. But that's what they tried. That I when I started keto, all I heard about was ketoacidosis. Ketoacidosis. You're gonna be no ketosis is a healthy state that your body gets into. As a matter of fact, Dr. Bickman points out that you're born in ketosis, absolutely natural state for our body to be in. Ketoacidosis is something that happens when our body can no longer produce insulin, and therefore there's too much ketones, another normal thing to be in our blood. But if too much of it, it's a problem. Well, guess what? Too much sugar is a problem that we live regularly, that is causing damage to our arteries, causing damage. Like our body is constantly being damaged by inflammation because of too much sugar in our body. And we're not being scared away from the standard American diet because of all the sugar in it. Very frustrating. I don't even know if most people realize that chips are a high carbohydrate food. Again, I think when the doctor says you need to cut sugar out of your diet, people go home and they cut sugar. They stop putting sugar in their coffee. They stop eating cookies. They stop eating cake. Okay, great. But they don't stop eating bread. They continue to eat pasta and rice. They continue to eat potatoes. They continue to eat things that are high in carbohydrates without realizing that they're eating things that are high in carbohydrates. So the second thing that I think people need to understand when we're talking about misconceptions about weight loss and things that block your weight loss is that when the doctor says take sugar out of your diet, what he really meant to say is take carbohydrates out of your diet. And in order to take carbohydrates out of your diet, you have to look wider than cookies, chips, and cake. I really love the energy I have in this video. And I feel like when I look back on my older videos, most of my videos have this kind of energy because people just don't understand. Even today, it just drives me crazy that we don't understand what constitutes a carbohydrate, and that sugar and carbohydrates are two words for the same stuff. And we focus only on sugar when the doctor tells us, like, you need to cut back on sugar. We take that word to be the white stuff that we put in our coffee, or like okay, of course we know cookies and cake and ice cream, but we ignore the place where I would say most adults get their sugar. So most adults who are trying to be healthy are not eating candy. Most adults who are trying to be healthy are not eating like dessert every single day at every single meal. But they'll do things like have breakfast and a bowl of fruit. That bowl of fruit is dessert, by the way. That sweet, tasty nature's candy, that's dessert. They'll have lunch and then have a granola bar, dessert. And then, of course, once in a while after supper, they're still going to have a brownie or some ice cream. We don't realize that on a very regular basis, we are eating dessert. We're just calling it by healthy names, right? And sometimes for breakfast, we have dessert. We'll have a protein bar. That's just dessert, right? It's a bunch of sugar and protein mixed together. It's dessert. Or we'll have a breakfast shake or a smoothie, whichever way you want to go. If you want to go protein shake, dessert. Breakfast smoothie with fruits, dessert. We don't understand where the sugar is coming from. The healthy cereal aisle is candy for breakfast. We don't understand where the problems are coming from. The real secret to permanent fat loss is taking all of this stuff out of your diet. The milk that you're drinking that has a bunch of lactose in it, we don't need to be drinking milk. We are adults. We are no longer trying to grow quickly. Milk should not be part of our diet, but it's there. We're having it. We're having it because it tastes fun. We're having it because it makes delicious tasting ice cream and cheese and it's nice to have beside cookies and cake. But these things are not helping our health wellness warrior. It's just making things worse. Okay, so then what happens? Well, we're left with what? We're left with eating vegetables that are low starch, low carb. So we have a lot of the cruciferous vegetables, the leafy greens, and we have a lot of salads that we can eat. The other problem that I see is that people do not recognize how important fats are when we take out carbohydrates. Most of your energy was coming from carbohydrates. And the doctor is telling you to take sugar out of your diet because it's making you overweight. Then if I take all of that out of my diet because I'm taking out the carbs, what am I left with? Right? All my energy is gone. I have to increase the fats I'm eating. I have no choice. This is the important part of the story. Fats from quality sources. If I'm replacing my carbohydrates with vegetable oil, I'm going to do poorly. What I need to do is replace my carbohydrates with high quality fats, which would be, for example, the fat that comes along with the protein that I'm eating. So most protein will come with a fat. If I eat an avocado, there's going to be fat in there. If I eat an egg, there's already fat in there. If I eat steak, there's already fat there. If I eat pork, there's already fat there. If I eat salmon, there's already fat there. This is what we're supposed to eat. You know how many people accuse me of not saying ever I said it in the third video. This is what we're supposed to eat. I'll be honest, I glossed over the veg. Yeah, some low glycemic vegetables and some cruciferous and some, like some leafies, whatever, because they're so unimportant. They are so unimportant. They are the things we put on our plate for fun, wellness warrior. But I absolutely tell you to eat, yes, low glycemic vegetables and focus your attention on the meat with its accompanying protein. We want cookbooks because we don't want to do the work. We don't want to figure out what we should be. As long as we want to be healthy, we will need to think about what we're going to put on our plate, first of all. But as long as what we want is to be healthy in a lazy way, is to be healthy without doing any work, just tell me exactly what spices should I put in there? How much percent? If that's what you're looking for, you're going to struggle because we're not putting in the absolute energy that we need to put in to say that no matter what situation I'm in, I know what to eat. The reason that most people fail is because unless they're absolutely at home cooking these complicated recipes, they can't eat anywhere else. And I think that's a mistake, first of all, because these complicated recipes are often sneaking in high carb things that we shouldn't be eating. High carb, like nut flours and all kind of stupidity that we shouldn't be having. And not just nut flours, but like there's other kinds of flours. There's like root flours and all kinds of flours now that I'm seeing popping up. And what we don't realize is it's just powdered carbohydrates. We're taking, they are tricking us into putting carbohydrates on our plate by just getting them from a different source. In the same way that they will tell us that agave syrup is a healthier version of, no, it isn't. It's just sugar. How do I know that? Because table sugar comes from cane, or it comes from beets, or you can get it from any other plant. It's just an extraction process. These syrups, all it is taking the sugar out of the plant and naming it something else. There's lots of ways that we can take sugar out of a plant and then call it something else. More recently, we heard about the chains of sugar that were strung together that are called maltodextrin. There's lots of different ways to string things together, and like which sugars are they stringing together? Because there's more than one kind of sugar. So there's more than one kind of carbohydrate because you have glucose, fructose, galactose, maltose as the four that I can think of off the top of my head. String them together in different ways and they have different names. But we need to understand that this desire that we want for things to be easy, the desire that we have for things to taste fun, is getting us in trouble because it leaves us open to these companies being able to sell us products as if they're real food when they're not. So that's first of all. But it also gets us to want someone else to tell us what to eat, someone else to tell us how to make what we're going to eat. And honestly, I feel like even if I wanted to give you the exact, this is what I ate, breakfast, lunch, supper, and I give you all the details of what I ate, does it mean that you're going to like what I eat? Not at all. And flip it around. If I follow your recipes and I don't challenge if I should be, you might have had tomatoes in your recipes. You might have had eggplant in your recipes. You might have had some other nightshade vegetables in your recipes that I would have been reacting to. And I would have believed that lowering the carbohydrates in my diet was not a solution for the joint and pain and the inflammation that I was living. And that's absolutely not true. I just also happen to react to nightshades. I react to both. So what does that mean? If today, after I leave this stream, I go and eat a tomato, somewhere later in the day, I'm going to be crying about my joints. If today, later in this day, I eat a lot of carbohydrate, so a lot of sugar, if I just get a teaspoon of sugar, eat it. Later in my day, I'm not going to be feeling, my joints are going to be hurting me because I react to both. It's not one or the other. We need to understand that the amount of damage that we have from the garbage that we've eaten over the how many years have we been doing this determines not only how much problem my body's living, so how much I ate, how much problem my body is living, but also what did my specific body react to and where did it react? My body hasn't changed its function, but I'll tell you that how my body reacts versus my sister, my brother, my daughter, although we're all in the same family, we showed different reactions because we have different bodies. And my body chose to do inflammation of the joints, which is different than what my siblings or my daughter's body is doing. We need to understand that, wellness warrior. We need to change this mindset. The truth is, you can lower your carbohydrates, but increase your fats, keeping your food intake, so the calorie number around the same, just lower the carbs, increase the fat, and you will lose weight. And then the interesting thing about that is that at the beginning, when you do this shift, you lower the carbs, you increase the fat. For the first little bit of time that you're doing this, you're going to eat exactly the same amount of calories. You are. Because, well, first of all, you're adapting to using fat for fuel and you're not used to it. But the second reason is because at that point in time, what your body is doing in this adjustment is keeping stable. And that's okay. And for most people, you will lose water weight because you've decreased your carbs. So you're not actually losing any fat weight. So even though technically, you're going to lose weight, theoretically, you've only lost water. So when we keep going forward on this way of eating, though, what you will also notice is that your body becomes more efficient. So actually what happens is that shift happens, and then the number of total calories, for example, that you might need will decrease. Partially. And I say partially because, yes, you will ingest fewer calories. Your body will use the same amount of calories. So one of the things that's interesting about this diet is that even though you decrease the amount of calories you're ingesting, because eventually when you make the shift and then you're eating, what's going to happen is you're still eating very low carb, because the carbs is what pushes you to have higher insulin, which pushes you to eat more. So you're keeping those carbs really low. So yes, you will eat low carb. You're going to eat moderate protein because you need to have enough protein to fuel and to rebuild your body. But your fat intake eventually will become less and less. And the reason for this is it's very simple. When you become fat adapted, then the fat that you carry on your body can be used as fuel. And so what you quickly realize, at least most people realize this when they're doing this program, so a ketogenic program, when you do that, is that when that shift happens, you actually just ingest less fat naturally because you're not as hungry, because your body's pulling fat from your system. Now, if that happens, then what you end up seeing, and which does happen for a lot of people, is what you end up seeing is that your weight goes down. So for the majority of people, yes, on a ketogenic way of eating, at some point your caloric intake decreases, technically, because you're not ingesting. Your caloric use stays the same because your body is using the fat that's stored on you, and we have a lot of fat stored on us. Even a regular weighted person has enough fat stored on them to last them a good few hundred days. So a person who's overweight has even more weight that's stored on them that they could use for many, many days. I'm so happy that I said that in that video. There's so much to talk about here, but let's start with the fact that you don't need to be hungry to lose weight. This idea of calories in, calories out, you need to go on this deficit that's going to cause, and we all walk around hungry on that diet. Back in the day when I tried to lose weight, I was hungry, and you're fighting with yourself not to eat. But I feel like the most important thing that I said in that is how your body is balanced. You're eating what your body needs, and then your body's taking energy from you. So here's another unlock that I understood from saying that, but I don't think I explained it well. If what my body needs is to heal, and I need building blocks, so protein, the major building block that we eat, and what? The other major building block is fat. If my body needs me, so it's sending me out for something, and I've got loads of energy on me, then chances are very good. And what I understood was my body was sending me out for building blocks. As time progressed and I understood that more and more, what happened is that the amount of fun things on my plate, carbohydrates, the fun things on my plate started to diminish in amount. And I allowed myself to maintain the protein because my protein amount never went less. It always stayed the same and then started to increase, but it was staying the same. I just allowed myself to eat less carbs because I, first of all, realized I have to be under 18 and I took it down to 10. So, first of all, but then second of all, even with the carbs that I was eating, I realized my body is actually asking for protein and fat. And the more that I've allowed myself to see this, the more protein and fat has made its way to my plate, and till we arrive at today where there's no carbohydrate on my plate at all. I don't eat it because I don't need it, because it's not what my body is asking for. My body isn't asking for that. My body is asking for protein and fat. Now, back then, Wellness Warrior, and this is, I hope, again, we're examining the real secret to permanent fat loss. This is one of the things. When I am eating a meal and I understand that the protein and fat on my plate is the actual meal and the carbohydrates that I've put there are for fun, then if I finish that meal and I feel even the slightest amount hungry and I'm going to have seconds, what should be making it to my plate? And so often people will come back with just carbohydrate. And I've seen this of people who are trying to do keto, that they will go for seconds and come back with just carbohydrate. Wrong. If my body is still hungry, it's not the fun it's looking for. Or they'll come back with both. Back when I was doing keto, if I was still hungry, I only got more protein with its accompanying fat. I didn't take seconds of carbohydrate because I already knew that whatever I had on my plate, first of all, trying to stay under 10, but second of all, was for fun. My body is still hungry. Focus on the food. The second mistake that we make, it's a similar thing, but we'll be eating and we know we've got some keto dessert waiting for us. And so we leave space for no. Like this idea of I'm not going to finish all of I'm starting to get full. I'm not going to finish this because I want to have some dessert. Please put that idea down. It's not helping us. And it's driving another problem. Sugar. Oh my goodness, what's going on with my voice today? Sugar in the body becomes a tool again when we do keto properly. What does that mean? Sugar in the body is there for specific purposes. So it's an energy source and it's a signaling. Like our body uses sugars to signal things. And so sugar has uses in the body that it should be there for. But when we overeat it, the problem is it starts signaling things that we don't want it to be signaling. For example, dopamine, right? Causing us to all these like feelings and reactions that we don't want it. So it pushes dopamine, serotonin. Like we get these reactions when it's in high amounts that cause us to feel good, that cause us to chase. So then we have cravings, right? Because the sugar pushes our cravings. It pushes it. We get insulin triggering as well, which now causes weight gain. When we have too much sugar in the body, the sugar in our body isn't signaling the right things and it's not being used in the right way. Remember, my body hasn't changed in terms of its baseline functioning, like what it knows it's supposed to be doing. It's what I'm eating that's pushing it to behave one way or another, right? It's like you need to think about this like if you can overload any system, right? And that's what we need to understand. When we give our body this extra sugar that it wasn't asking for, that it doesn't need, because my body makes all the sugar that I ever need, right? I never need to eat any sugar. So as soon as I give my body some sugar that it didn't ask for, that it doesn't need, we need to understand that when we overload the system, then things stop functioning properly. Things are in the wrong places. Things are being stored where they shouldn't be stored. It's kind of like you spill water all over the floor, and then because you can't get everything into the bucket, you start to put it in the kitchen sink, and you don't want dirty water from the floor in the kitchen sink. But what else am I going to do with it? I got to get it off the hardwood floors, or the floor is going to get ruined, right? And you're putting it in your plants, and you're putting it in the dishes, and you're putting it in clean clothes because you just need to get it off the floor. And I feel like we don't understand that we do that to our body, and it's not good. I really just want to go back and focus on, again, the fact that when we do this properly, our energy intake, so the amount of energy that our body is using remains stable, right? We're switching bad sugar out for healthy fat, and our energy remains stable. And that is absolutely why we're able to maintain keto long term, because we're not walking around starving. We're actually doing well. What I'm suggesting to you is that it's not about giving up, it's about trading. And I think before we decide that we can't do it, we should at least give ourselves the chance to do it. And I think the other thing that you'll notice when you give yourself the chance to do it, and it's hard because I have to try in order to see that this is possible, is that if I decide to do something, whenever I decide to do it, I'm going to go in full force. And then once I've decided and I've gone in full force, then everything I do from that moment on is about seeing, how do I feel about this? right? I have to allow myself the chance to really focus on how is this making me feel rather than focusing on what I'm giving up, what I don't have anymore, what I miss. And I know I'm not telling you that you're not going to miss things because that's just silly. Of course, people miss things. But when I compare what I'm missing to how I currently feel, then you decide, right? So if going low carb, high fat, or going keto, which is even lower because keto is 50 grams or less of carbs total per day. If going, whereas low carb is 150 or less. But if going low carb or keto is going to be the difference between you feeling amazing or not, then the question becomes, well, how do I want to feel? And when you do keto, one of the things that I've noticed, and person after person, client after client has repeated this, is that when you do keto and you really get those carbs down super low, the hunger goes away, the cravings go away. That you eat when you're hungry, and then you love what you're eating because it tastes great because there's natural flavor in it. So, if you really want to feel better, what you need to learn to do is prioritize you, both your emotional and your physical health. You need to prioritize and realize that you are worth putting in the effort to learn how to manage your emotions about eating and to manage your actual eating behavior. You are worth that energy and that effort. I really just want us all to understand that the mentality that you have about weight loss is the most important thing that you're going to be adjusting. So, again, that permanent weight loss secret. I came in thinking this is going to work because it has to. I didn't have another option. Now, for a lot of people, you're not at wit's end like I was, where you were just willing to do anything. But I'll tell you that I quickly went from being at wit's end to being like, how the heck did this work so fast? How is it possible that within days I'm already starting to feel better? And the fact that within 3 months I was feeling amazing, like my joint pain was gone. My mentality of I'm doing this, I'm giving it my all, helped me to see what was happening. I want us all to come into keto, carnivore, low carb, whichever one you're doing, with an understanding of what you're trying to accomplish and then give it your all. If you aren't on board with what you're doing, then every time you have a chance to cheat, you're going to cheat, wellness warrior. Every opportunity to have some chips, to have to go out and eat something that's off plan, to you're going to do it. Why? Because you're not committed. There's a hard reality that we all have to accept, which is that we are not in control of the sugar that we eat. That in the last point that I said, where the dopamine is running, it's out of control. Like you're not in control. You are chasing. Your cravings are pushing you. Because why? Because sugar is controlling that you need more sugar. We allowed it. It was placed in your life when you were 6 months old. The first food that we are put on typically is fruit or vegetables. Why are we not put on meat first since our body needs protein, us little babies? Why are we not put on meat first? Somehow, doctors tell us to start with to start with vegetables or fruit. It doesn't make any sense to me, but that's what we're told. And so that's what we do. So our little children, so we as little children, we started having this interaction with sugar that's framing how we interact with food forever. And we don't understand why we chase. So If you get the opportunity when you go out to eat off plan, guess what you do? If you're not thinking about it, so if you're not focused, if you haven't changed your mindset, if you haven't started to insert ideas that talk about the difference between stuff I put on my plate for fun and the actual food on my plate, if I don't make those distinctions, what do I end up doing? I end up eating off plan. I have what I call a cheat meal, although I still don't understand how I can be cheating on myself. This is not a cheat meal. This is a hurt me meal. This is a setback meal. This is a I don't believe in myself meal. This is a I'm not sure if I really want to be healthy meal. Call it what it really is. But it's not a cheat meal because I can't cheat on me. I'm the one doing this thing. I'm harming my progress. And it's an insult to my body because my body was doing better. It's an insult to my body because my body was showing me, hey, Violet, if you give me the right stuff, I will give you good health. And I turn around and say to my body, you don't know what you're talking about. I can eat this and still be healthy. It's not true. Your body is right. And we need to believe our body because our body actually wants what's best for us. So let's believe our body and eat real food every time we sit down to eat. Let's put down the snacking silliness. One thing that we know is that low carb, low fat loses weight, but it lasts for about 6 months. And then you're so hungry and you're so weak that you end up eating and regaining all the weight. Consistently, it seems to be consistently, everybody who's doing this, it's very obvious, consistently, low carb, high fat, and especially keto numbers, keto minus like less than 50 grams total, and high fat equals weight loss that's sustainable for years. You have to ask yourself, am I willing to become fat adapted so that I can have the life that I want to have? The eat less, move more myth, I think in our community has now been replaced with do keto and force fasting. There's so many people that are forcing themselves to fast rather than allowing their body to naturally go there. If it will. Not everybody naturally gets to a fasting place, from what I understand. But the problem that I see is if we force our body to do something, it means that my body isn't ready. So even like again, take myself. If I would have tried at the very beginning when I was first doing everything and tried to force my body to fast at that very beginning, let's call a spade a spade. The first few weeks of doing keto, before I purchased my scale and started using the chronometer, I wasn't doing keto. I was much reduced in my carbohydrates. I did lose weight, but until I got that scale and started to actually track, I was not doing keto. I was well above like the 50. I was in the 70s, I believe. I still lost weight, Wellness Warrior. But would I have completely solved my hip issue? No, I wouldn't have completely solved it. My hip issue, so remember I said it started to feel better right away. At 3 months, it was solved. What was the difference? I got my numbers in the right place. I actually regulated what I was eating. I started to have even better understanding of what I was doing. All of this is coming back to the idea that we cannot force our body to lose weight. We cannot. Low fat, low carb didn't work because what your body will do is it will look at what you're doing and then it will adjust its energy. And that process of looking what you're doing and adjusting takes about six months. Dr. Fung has explained it. About 6 months. Biggest Loser, how long were seasons? Right? You never had the same people on a season 2 or a season 3. Why not? Right? Because As we learned in the follow-ups later on when their non-disclosures were released, they gained the weight back. Most of them gained the weight back. Low carb, low fat doesn't work because our body doesn't want low carb, low fat. What our body actually wants is healthy. Our body wants us to give it the protein and fat that it's looking for so that it can build and repair and do all the things that it's trying to do and keep us in a healthy state for the longest possible period of time. And if we don't do that, if we try to force fasting, our body will fight us on that. And I've heard people talking about that they can't fast, and then the worst part about it is if you try to force fasting, like everything else that happens with us because we can think, right? When we even think about fasting now going forward, our body tries to fight with us. And okay, we're often talking about calories in, calories out. And one of the points that Dr. Fung makes is that when we eat um, sugar, so whether it's a cookie, whether it's a piece of cake, whatever it is, the insulin spike that results causes that those carbs to be stored as fat in our fat cells. That's one system. That's one pathway. When we exercise, we use the glucose that's stored in our muscles. If we're not fat adapted, we don't even tap into the fat cells that are being stored. So the idea of calories in, calories out is two different systems. It's important for us to understand that. If I'm trying to lose weight, I need to allow myself to understand what process is happening. What are the things I can actually do to help myself to lose weight? So again, these are things that I want you to know because knowledge helps us to make better decisions. I'm so happy that I rewatched this video because that's something I actually forgot about. And I wasn't, it was not something that's top of mind for me. The fact that we have these two systems, like the food coming in is either being sent off to be stored or being utilized in some kind of process or being utilized in some kind of energy story. And then we have this other use of our body. So using our muscles and engaging the world. It's a different system. It's not using energy that came in now. So I'm happy that I rewatched this video because I've forgotten about that. And Dr. Fung explains it so well in his video. It's one of the first videos that I watched when I learned about keto, and it solidifies for me that the whole need to eat before you work out idea, not reality. It helps explain why when we don't eat for a few days, we have more energy, two different systems, and our body wants us to go out and do stuff and catch food. And then of course all the processes that our body does do. I learned from Dr. Ekberg that all the processes that our body does do when we are fasting to help us to find food, because back when this would have been normal, we would have been fasting often. We would have been fasting because we didn't catch anything. So happy that I rewatched this video. And again, it goes back to um, just make me pay attention to all the different reasons that eating healthy every day is the right thing to do. And then if I'm not eating, to really just not eat, right? This is another thing I will point out here. You have these fasting mimicking diets where you're eating, but they're saying it's mimicking fasting. I always had such a problem with this idea because, again, Dr. Ekberg's ideas and what he's showing about what our body's doing de- depending on how long it's been since we've eaten. Dr. Fung's explanation of the fact that when we bring our energy down to a certain point, over 6 months, our body starts to understand and it just recalibrates. I don't understand how fasting mimicking diets make any kind of sense. And I've watched videos talking about it. I've tried to understand it, but then with what I understand from Dr. Fung and Dr. Ekberg and the many doctors that point back to this is reality, this is what's happening, I don't understand how fasting mimicking diets can be a long-term solution to anything. And if they're not long-term, then now we're back to the story where this is a diet, and that's not advisable, wellness warrior. We should not be dieting because those diets put us in a position where we're fighting with our body. And when we fight with our body, we don't win, which Canadians follow too. The standard American diet tells us that 45 to 65% of our daily caloric intake can come from carbs. Actually, should come from carbs. It says should. And I always want us to understand what that means. If 45% of our caloric intake comes from carbs, that's equivalent to 169 grams of carbs, all the way up to 244 grams of carbs, which would be equivalent to 34 to 49 teaspoons of sugar per day. When would you ever sit down and eat 35 teaspoons of sugar? The first time I saw someone do that experiment or that presentation where they have a can of soda and then they bring out the equivalent amount of table sugar and start putting it in a container, or if they're using cubes, putting it on the table. The first time I saw how much sugar it actually was, I was so shocked. And it was just like the light bulb that went off in my brain of like, wait a minute, what? And that was the thought that I had. I would never sit and just eat that much sugar. But that's how much sugar is it? Like in I was shook, Wellness Warrior. We somehow have been lulled into ignoring this information. Like we know it, like in our head, like if when or at least some of us know it. When you say that, you're like, yeah, I remember that. I've seen that before. But then somehow we walk away and we'll drink something sweet again. Like why? If we've seen this, if we know this, if this is reality, if that's how much sugar is in this thing, why would we walk away and drink that again? And maybe it's not the same day, but a week from now. They have us so brainwashed that we just put information down that we learn and pick right back up where we are in the habit of eating poorly, and so therefore we eat poorly. And I need us to understand that they bank on that. They make a lot of money off of us not paying enough attention and eating poorly. It took years for us to get to the point where we're sick and overweight and struggling. Years. And we really do need to give ourselves the time that it will take to heal. And I really think in the video, I talk about committing for at least 5 months. And honestly, I feel like that makes perfect sense because your body has that first few weeks where you're just adapting and you're trying to get used to it and you're not doing it properly yet. Trust me, I wasn't. And if you're new, you probably won't be, and it's fine. But you're going to get results. And as you push forward and you do better and better and better, and your body starts healing better and better, you're going to realize the benefits that your body is actually having, right? I feel like when you're eating a certain way and you're thinking about what you're eating, you're being purposeful, not just blindly following a cookbook. You're being purposeful in what you're choosing and you know why you're choosing it. Again, when I follow somebody else's recipe, do I know why they're putting so much onion? Do I really need all the onion right? Like, I don't know. They're putting that much, so I put that much. When we actually take the time to understand what it is that we're doing, why we're doing what we're doing, how it's beneficial to us, then we're going to start to understand in any story how to eat healthy. I'll be able to do it at a restaurant, which we do. When I go out to eat, I eat the healthiest option on the menu. And usually I can talk to the waiter or waitress and get them to tweak it so that I feel absolutely comfortable with what I'm having. We need to do what's healthiest, Wellness Warrior, if we want to have healthy results. There's no other way of doing it. We need to do what's healthiest. And I mean, we are afraid of failing. We're afraid that we'll start something and then it just doesn't work. And sometimes we sabotage ourselves. We'll put things in our way because we don't think it's going to work. We don't have the confidence in us. And so we give the cheat day. Again, I hate calling it that. We give in to cravings and we eat off plan and we harm ourselves rather than every single day eat what you've promised to yourself to eat because you said you wanted to be healthier. But our fear of failure causes us to throw monkey wrenches in so that we can say, oh, it was because I did that. Oh, it was because I wasn't really trying. My question to you is, this is about your health. This is about your longevity. Why aren't you trying? Are the fun foods, are the social gatherings, are they actually more important than you being healthy long term? In the video I talked about like the trades, right? Seeing it as a trade rather than seeing it as a give up. And I really want us to embrace that idea. You're not giving up anything because these things were shortening your lifespan. These things were making you walk around heavier than you wanted to be, which was impeding your healthy progress, which was making me feel horrible. My joints were killing me from the age of 23 to 46. That is 23 years, wellness warrior, of pain that I didn't need to be living. I just wasn't aware. So the fact that I don't eat cookies or ice cream anymore, I don't really care because I get to eat bacon and I get to eat um like pork with the fat on it. And like I have found that the most tender pork chops, I have a butcher, and as a treat I go there and I buy these beautiful pork chops, and the price is so reasonable. You know what? That is more tasty to me. And I feel good the next day compared to when I was eating stupidity. The garbage that I was ingesting was not worth it compared to eating a great meal. And then I still get to enjoy my day tomorrow. We give away our health at such a young age because we don't know better. We're being told this is what we're supposed to eat. We're taking in hundreds of grams of sugar every single day. At the minimum, at the lowest end, we're taking in hundreds. In the low, I have had days where I took in that full pound, 450-ish grams of carbs. When I tracked my meals before I started this, I wanted to see where was I even starting from. And also I could go back in my tracker because I used the same tracker that I had from years ago, and I could go back and look at other things and on a regular basis, when I thought I was doing so good, eating so healthy, the carb count was in the 200s. There's no reason for me ever to have been having 200 grams of carb. Knowledge is power, wellness warrior. If you don't understand this stuff, then you really just don't know the secret to permanent fat loss. I haven't regained the weight because I understand this stuff. I understand that our body doesn't get calories. It understands proteins, carbohydrates, and fats. It has no care in the world about calories. So me keeping a calorie count low or high or left or right, my body doesn't care. How much fat is coming in? My body cares about that. How much protein is coming in? My body cares about that. Do I need more protein? If I do, I eat more. Do I need more fat? If I eat, do I need more? My body doesn't care about calories. There's so many things that we are told that we're just being told as a diversion, as a smokescreen that we need to put down. Hello, Acer. It is great seeing you here. I didn't think I'd get this riled up talking about one of my old videos, but apparently I did. So it's great to see you here. I'm glad to be here. Robert Preston, hello. They are trying to ensure that GMO crop sales stay high. Couldn't agree more. As well, that's lots of sugar and carbs get eaten as being see as letting it be seen as being healthy. I'm sure is what you meant to say there. And it's not healthy. It's absolutely ruining our health. If there are questions, this is the time to put them in because I'm going through the chat right now. For anybody who's just listening, this is the chance to ask me a question. Hello from Seoul, Korea. Michael, thank you for joining from Seoul. I wonder what time it is there. I don't know, but I'm just happy to have you here. And if it's the middle of the night, thank you for being here. I appreciate it. So Robert asks, have you tried using tallow as a skin lotion? Seems to really help any kind of eczema or even pimples. You know what, Robert? I didn't try it, but I do have tallow. I'm now the only problem I have is my question mark is won't I walk around smelling like meat? I'm trying to think what does I feel like when I cook with tallow, I like the smell because the food smells good, but I'm wondering does the tallow actually have a smell? I'm going to check on this. If it's something that I will smell on me, then I will do it at night. But I hadn't thought about that. I think I heard that Carrie from Homestead How, his daughters made some kind of tallow moisturizing something. But I hadn't looked more into it than that. As I'm reading this, it reminds me of that. Good morning, little Miss Tiny Cannon. How are you doing? You're asking if cane sugar, no sugar is good. There isn't such a good, the only sugar that is good, I was wrong. The only sugar that is good is the sugar that my body makes because my body will only make how much I need. There's no such thing as a good eaten sugar. It doesn't exist. So that's my blanket answer from now on. There's no such thing as a eaten sugar that's good. If my body makes it, it's absolutely perfectly fine. Good morning, Renee Brown. Nice to have you here. So, the law of thermodynamics cannot be applied to human metabolism because we are not a closed system. Yes, it's reality. And I feel like it's interesting because I've still seen some doctors saying that we're not breaking the laws of thermodynamics with what we're saying. And I feel like it's because we are not a closed system that they're saying that, but I don't even know why it's a conversation to be had. We do not burn energy, and therefore the calories, which is based on burning something to get the temperature of something, the temperature of water to a certain temperature, we don't burn anything. So because we don't burn things, I still feel like the calorie idea is just not applicable, period. And that's fine. It doesn't need to be applicable. It's not because somebody wanted to apply it to humans and metabolism and to food that means that it needed to be applicable. The time where I feel like it is applicable, if you are living in a home that has a log burning system, so like whether it's a fireplace or one of those stoves that burns wood, and you've been burning wood in there, and you run out of wood, and you're trying to figure out, well, what's the best food to throw in there? Yes, checking the food that has the most calories when it's burned is going to help you to be efficient in what you burn versus what you get to eat if you have no wood left, because you probably want to eat, you probably have that stuff in your house because you eat it, and try to make that decision, totally fine. But in terms of what we should be eating and our good health, no, I don't think it makes any sense. And I'm still waiting for someone to show me something that makes me think otherwise. So Craig Villani, hello. I made the mistake recently of commenting on Paul Curtin's channel, Hench Herbivore, and I was told I am on the verge of heart disease and am a murderer. I used to be a WFPB, but had health problems. I don't know the acronyms. WFPB. If somebody knows what that is, maybe I can just check it quickly. WFPB. What does that mean? It means whole food plants based. Thank you. Okay. Google help me there. So you used to be whole food plants based where you had health problems. Craig, a lot of people do. You go on to say, now I'm carnivore keto and am apparently healthy. These statements made towards me have me frightened. Anyone know of this channel? I am not a murderer. So, first of all, the fact that they tell you you're a murderer, in my opinion, discounts everything else they said after that. When a lion eats any other animal, we don't say, oh my gosh, it's a murderer. No, it was eating. That's what it needs to do. We also need to eat. We found more delicate ways of processing our animals, and then we have horrible ways of processing our animals. I lean towards companies, so farms that care and process their own animals um, in a humane way. And humane is interesting because they're animals, but like in a humane way, right? We want our animal to have a good life while it's living, and then to have the least possible pain when it becomes our food. And we're doing that more for us because we don't like this idea of harming, right? But I'll tell you, if back in the day when it was eat or be eaten, when we were living out there with the animals and we didn't have these houses to stop the lion from just walking up and eating me, if we could eat the lion, we would have eaten the lion, right? If we could, whatever we could catch and eat, we were eating it. And so we didn't care that the lion took down the gazelle. And as a matter of fact, if the lion took down the gazelle and didn't finish it, and there were no other lions around to finish it, we would have gone and scavenged. So, I mean, we need meat, fish, poultry, eggs. We need those things because that's where the animal protein that we need for our bodies is going to come from. Everything else that we eat is because we have access to it, not because it's the best thing for us to eat. So I hope that helps you, Craig. And there's a lot of people who just walk away from vegetarian and vegan because of the toxic culture over there. And it's unfortunate because vegetarian and vegan is still better than standard American diet if you're eating real food, whole food. Let me just be clear on that. If you're eating processed food, it's the same stupidness. It's actually worse. But if you're doing whole foods like you said you were doing, then it's still better than standard. But you're missing the meat and the fish and the poultry and the eggs. There's much more death from monocropping agriculture. Yeah, I definitely think that we've ignored the fact that nature has a rhythm and that plants have figured out how to be, with each other in a certain way, and the fact that seasons happen and plants can survive that. And we've come along and we've disturbed the ecosystem. And now it is problematic. And of course, in the process of trying to grow plants for our purposes, we kill other animals. Like we kill things that we don't even acknowledge because we weren't planning to eat them. But someone else could have eaten them. It's just like I feel like it's so wrong. Like the foxes and the canines and the cats that are in the wilderness around us, whether it's forest or whatever it is, that could have been eating those snakes and all these little animals that we just plow through them to get our whatever we've planted, and then we ignore. And of course we set traps for them too, right? So that they if they can't eat what we're killing, then we don't want them to eat the plants because they get desperate, they start to eat the plants, and so we're going to kill them. Yes, yes, and yes, and we don't even count the bugs that spraying pesticides and stuff is messing with either. Protein, absolutely. Yep, most of us are under eating protein according to experts. Yes, doctor, do I have my cheat sheet here? Hold on. My cheat sheet. Dr. Lehman talks about the fact that we, especially women, are severely under eating our protein and that we should be doing more. And I definitely feel that I did feel stronger when I up my protein and have maintained my increased protein, and I feel great. One of the things I find really, so I up my protein and accompanying fat. So like when I say protein, I'm talking about I don't ever eat lean versions of anything. And as a matter of fact, I'm that person that it doesn't matter which cut comes out of off the piece of meat that I bought. If there's fat there, and if there's a lot of fat, a little bit of meat, and that's the slice I took, that's the slice I'm eating. If there's a lot of meat, a little bit, but like, like I eat it. Right? I'll try to match them so that at least I have enough protein, but I will eat all that fat. I'm not throwing it in the garbage. And sometimes you can cut a piece and it's like, okay, this is going to be an interesting, you know, I'm not throwing it in the garbage. So I feel like people need to understand that accompanying fat is so necessary for good health. It's not just nice to have, it's necessary. And what I was going to say was that since increasing my protein and fat consumption, my weight is stable. It's interesting to me. And like you would think that I would have, because I have one of those scales that talks about fat, like balance, and I can see the shifts happening. So it's like, it's not that, like, I do feel that my body is shifting and there's less body fat and more muscle. And so that's really fun to see. And, but like you would think that my weight would have shot up because I'm eating all this extra fat and protein, but not at all. So I only weigh myself every month or so. But the last time I checked, I was exactly the 2 months in a row, I was exactly the same amount. So Acer, no cane sugar is off the menu. No beet sugar or bread or bagels or rice or pasta or grains. When Violet refers to energy on her body or the body, she means body fat. Carbs are not optimal. Even though I will acknowledge that we do have carbs on our body for energy in the form of like glycogen, we make more than enough sugar to replenish our glycogen stores as needed. Another just lovely thing that our body is able to do for us to keep us healthy. I love it. I really do. Um, if you're mildly malnourished, it is magnificent. So you eat much, much more than one would need. This is a fat accumulation evolutionary mechanism and cannot be overcome. Okay, if you're mildly malnourished, it is magnified, so you eat much, much more. Oh, if you're mildly malnourished, you're talking about eating sugar. I don't know if that's an evolutionary thing in that sense. I know that we unfortunately get into an addictive scenario with our own brain because sugar, eaten sugar, again, I need to make that distinction. When we eat sugar, it stimulates the part of the pathway of our brain that is a pleasure pathway. And maybe that's what you're speaking about. But theoretically, in a normal scenario, we wouldn't have been eating so much of it for so long that we would have become um, like habitual eaters, right? We would have had it during a season, and even like one bush of berries for like how many people in my tribe, how much of that would I actually have gotten? So like I do feel that the amounts that we have now in the plentiful way that we have it is just more than it ever would have been in the history of us being on the planet. And so, yes, maybe we kind of go for it when it's there if we have it. But the other thing that all the keto doctors talk about is the fact that before this stage, fruit wasn't as sweet as it is today. That's first and foremost. We've genetically engineered them to be sweeter and bigger. But second of all, back then, if we had the option between eating an animal and eating berries, there would have been nobody at the berries. They would have been all at the animal. So like we weren't dumb. We were paying attention to what was healthier for us to have. Little Miss, no cane sugar is not good for your body. Thank you for answering that question, Zana Taylor. I appreciate that. Acer, Any carbs raise insulin. Any insulin will stop the body from using its own fat, but will store fat instead. Plus, it awakens cravings. Yes, yes, and yes. Well said. Um, Zaina Taylor at Craig. Oh, people, you guys are talking to each other. I love it. Do I need to read this? Oh, know if you are on the verge of heart disease. How would the henge know if you're vegans attribute a huge amount of animal death every year due to maintaining vegan crops? What scares you? Now, I don't know that. I mean, nobody can tell you if you're on the verge of anything. That's just them talking. There are so many people that run every day, eat the heart healthy diet, feel that they're in amazing shape, look like they're in amazing shape, and have heart attacks. There are so many bodybuilders that are like muscular and their gut is protruding, which means they have fatty liver, fatty pancreas, fatty, all the fatty things. Right. So I feel like we don't know what we don't know, and people talk about things based on what they've learned. I'm trying really hard to learn what's best practice, to learn what's healthiest for us to do, so that when I talk to you, you get the best information. So, like, at the end of the day, them saying you're going to have the, like, they can't say that because they don't know you and they don't know what your previous history of whatever was. When we talk about generalities, it's the people eating standard diet that are the highest risk for heart disease, the highest risk for diabetes, so people doing standard diet are at the highest risk for all the things. Funny enough, any diet is better than standard diet. Any diet. So as much as I don't agree with a vegan or vegetarian diet, if you're doing whole foods, vegan or vegetarian, it's still better than standard diet. But that vegan thing with you not having any animal protein like whatsoever, it's dangerous, man. So these are things that again we need to pay attention to. And I feel like the problem that I also see is add this here too is that a lot of times a lot of people will do like a vegan or vegetarian diet because of a mental like a worldview, then that's not about health. And so when their health starts to fail, they don't make adjustments because they're not doing it for health anyway. And a lot of these people are already thin, and so they think that that's some kind of sign of health. It's not. And so problems. Happy Monday. Thank you very much. Oddball question. What are your thoughts on the blood type diet? I don't believe that there's any basis to a blood type diet only because before we were blood typing, how did people know what to eat? So I don't know. Like to me is a eat real food, meat, fish, poultry, eggs, and you should be fine. These things I think they're just gimmicks. Thank you for answering my questions, Anna. DT Washmore, could you give a simple list of things to eat? I did in that video. If you want to go back and watch that video, I did. Low glycemic vegetables, meat, fish, poultry, eggs. As a matter of fact, I keep saying it. I'm saying it now again. Meat, fish, poultry, eggs. I say that one over and over, and yet people ask me what to eat. That is what to eat. Meat, fish, poultry, eggs. That is actually food. Everything else you're putting on your plate is for fun, right? And I feel like we just don't want to hear it. And it's not because you don't know, it's because you want me to say something else, but I'm not going to say something else. What vegetable you choose whatever vegetables you like. That's the answer. Because none of them are necessary. Most of them are not healthy. I got that from Sally Norton, Dr. Chafee, Dr. Eid, Dr. Berry. Yeah, I'll stop there. They're the ones that really are pushing that these things are not healthy. Oh, Professor K, these things are not healthy. There's no need to eat them. Dr. Baker, another one that says it. See on my list? Need to add them to my list. These are unnecessary things. So that's the list: meat, fish, poultry, eggs. It's like if someone were to ask you, well, what should I put on to be warm in the winter? And you say, well, it's most important to cover all parts of your body that are showing if you can. And they're like, well, what should I put on? Well, like cover the major parts. Like put on a jacket, put on some pants, cover the major parts that are showing. And then but what should I put on it? So do I need to tell you if your ears get cold to cover your ears? Do I need to tell you if your toes are cold to put on socks and shoes? And like, I feel like this question of what should I be eating isn't a real question. It's you're not allowing yourself to really listen to what are we trying to minimize? Sugar. Where is sugar found? All plants. All plants. Any plants you eat, mostly sugar. So, as soon as I understand that it's all plants, and I say low glycemic vegetables and meat, fish, poultry, eggs, I've said the most important things there. Everything else that you're looking at to put on your plate is for fun. I'm not going to tell you how to have fun. My goal here is to tell you what to do to improve your health so that you do the things that improve your health. I want you to walk forward from this day forward with a body that's healthier than it was yesterday. The only way that we accomplish that is by putting down this idea of eating fun stuff and picking up this idea of I only eat meals. In those meals, I put the healthiest things that I can put. If you're planning to eat vegetation, low glycemic vegetables. You notice I don't say fruit. I say low glycemic vegetables. Now, do people in the keto carnivore world eat fruit? I know they do. I'm not telling you to eat fruit. I don't need to tell you to eat fruit. It's not healthy and you're going to eat it anyway. So I don't need to name it. I don't need to list it. I don't need to tell you how much or how little to have. It's unhealthy. I'm saying don't eat it. If you eat it, you eat it. But I want us all to own that we are putting ourselves in a situation when we prioritize trying to figure out what fun things I can still have rather than focusing on meat, fish, poultry, eggs. How do I cook them in a way that I can eat them, live my life, and then go have fun doing other things? Have fun with people. Have fun with activities and hobbies. Have fun learning. Have fun other places. Meat, fish, poultry, eggs. That's what the fruit should be. I hope that clarifies, DT Washmore. Miss Goody, just discovered your channel. You are wonderful. I just need to understand how to decide how much protein and fat. That's a question that I have answered before, but I'll answer it again. I like people, first of all, to understand what Dr. Lehman said, which is that we've been severely under eating our protein. He believes that the average woman should be somewhere around 1 gram of protein, maybe more, maybe less, but like somewhere around 1 gram. If they're just like typical, like that you're not working out hard and all that. If you're working out hard, then he's like, you need to go up maybe to 1.5. He says the average dude is starting in at 1.5. If they're working out hard, it might go up to 2 or 3, depending on how hard they're working out. Go find his videos and watch his stuff. He's interesting. And then what I've been asking, the way that I've always looked at it was find the ideal weight that you're supposed to weigh. And so I was saying to find that weight and then do the required amount for that weight. But that puts us at the 0.8 per gram of protein per pound, right? Maybe I didn't say that all the way. Dr. Lehman is saying 1 gram of protein per pound of lean muscle mass. I'm saying go for, I used to say 0.8, like I used to just say the norm. Now I tell people you should be aiming at the middle range of your weight range. So if your weight range is from 110 to 140, you should be aiming right in the middle there. Like, what did that be? 130, whatever, 130, I think it is, or You're aiming right in the middle. And then that's how much grams of protein you're trying to eat. So for a lot of us, that's a lot. I mean, I'm still working my way up to it, but take note, I haven't gained any weight, but I'm still working my way up to it. And I feel like depending on like some of us, what ends up happening is that that lower range. So when I was saying, oh, the 0.8 per pound, it puts you like really under that low range. It's not enough, according to Dr. Lehman. So if my goal weight is that middle ground, and then I look at for that middle ground of 130, well, what would be the lean body mass? I'm sorry, I'm not doing all the math here, but you have to, what would be the lean body mass of 130 pounds? And it ends up being like 110 or something. Then that's a more reasonable number to try to get to. And it is about lean body mass if I understood well. And that's what I've been aiming at for myself. Still trying to get there. I'm really close though. And then if you work out a lot, then you know that you can go past that number because your body is working hard and you're going to be making muscle and all this kind of stuff. But it's protein. The accompanying fat is really interesting because now we're talking at protein percentages and everything. And I feel like there's a lot of variation here, but I don't think that being 70, like under 70%, like, how do I say that? I feel like if you're hungry and you've got close to your protein number, it's probably because there's not enough fat in your diet. And I encourage everyone to like the good thing is it doesn't take much fat to add more fat, whereas it takes much more protein to add more protein. But it's depending on what you're eating. If you're eating steaks or, like pork chops, it might be easier to get that protein in. If you're eating eggs to do your protein, it's harder. There's not as much protein in eggs. So I would also encourage people to choose higher protein foods, meat, fish, poultry, eggs, and stop relying on the vegetation to make up the protein. And especially if you're counting the vegetation protein, we need to understand that Dr. Lehman pointed out that of the protein that's in vegetation, so any plant, you only have access to somewhere around 40% of it. So you need to say now if it was 8 grams of protein, well, you actually would only have gotten 2 grams. Is that right? Yeah. No, 3 grams. You only would have gotten like 3 grams, something like that. But you would have gotten 40%. Yeah, 3 grams ish or something. Well, let's say if it was 10 grams of protein, you would have gotten 40. So that's not ideal. Basically, is what he's pointing out. You don't want to eat 10 grams of protein to only get 4. You want to eat animal protein where you can eat 10 grams of protein and you're getting like 98, right? 98% of it. So 10 grams of protein is 9.8. So there's very little waste is his point when we eat animal protein. Gosh, I'm new here. I'm new to keto, sorry, second week. And about 60% there, got to get those snacks and carb cravings out of my system. So I will tell you that if you are snacking and craving, chances are that you're not in ketosis. And that's unfortunate. You still be losing weight, which is good. But I would really put my attention on getting down to that 20 grams of carbs or less, and then figuring out if 20 is even your number. Because you, like I said in the video, you might need less. But if 20 is your number, great. And then I would just focus all of my energy, time, effort, eyes on why am I doing this? Like being healthy is the most important thing. And when we're not healthy, life stops. So you just want to focus your attention on the right goal. So those animals that are killed because of monocrop farming don't go to waste. There's lots of scavenger animals that are grateful for them. Humans are apex predators. We eat meat. Okay. Body reconstruction is real. Yeah, I definitely believe that that's the truth, Acer. There's so much better that we can do with our body once we feed it the right thing so that we can, but like I said before, I started climbing in the last few years because I'm just strong enough, and it's fun, and it's just amazing that I'm able to go and climb and have a good time, and at the same time help my body to build and grow and do all the good things. Keeping yourself moving and using the muscles that, so what do they say? If you don't use the muscles, they atrophy. And like, it's so true. If we don't let ourselves use our muscles and move around and be active, then we're going to end up in a bad scenario. And we none of us want to be in a bad scenario. Were you ever a teacher? You have a great delivery. I taught nursery school, so I don't know, I don't believe that counts. But I did teach nursery school, but I do like sharing knowledge and sharing information. And so that's probably where that comes from. Any thoughts on fish oil as a supplement? I think that when you can get the actual fish, you should have the actual fish. Now, there's a lot of people talking about the fact that we're growing our fish in polluted waters. And so there's always that question mark. But I just don't trust processed anything anymore. Don't trust it. But if you don't have access to fish or you don't like fish, and that's the only way to get it, that's a choice you'll make. The other thing that I will say though is that Dr. Baker keeps coming back to this idea that it's not necessarily needed if you're eating grass-fed. Like, so if you're eating better quality meat, that the omegas should be in the right proportion. As a matter of fact, Dr. Eid also said meat, fish, poultry, eggs, everything's in the right proportions. Like, it doesn't matter which one, she said. So even not having fish, she said that they're all in the right proportions in the animal. So with that information, I'm not scared about having fish only once in a blue moon, which is what I do. I have it occasionally when I feel like I'm in the mood. I don't have it all the time. And I'm totally fine with that because, yeah, I'm totally fine with that. So, yeah. You said you think boiled shrimp are a good source of protein. I think any animal, which a fish is technically in that realm because it's protein. It's real. So it's animal protein, even though it's an aquatic animal. So all of them have they all have protein, like the right kind of protein for humans. The problem that I would see with shrimp is that there's probably not enough fat. So it would be the way you cook it that's going to make the biggest deal there. You're going to want to have a good amount of fat or have it alongside your steak. So, the surf and turf idea. But yeah, Dr. Berry says, eat meat till you are comfortably stuffed. That helped me a lot, not under or overeat or crave. So Dr. Berry said that, and I definitely have lived that. Like, if I'm eating only meat, and this is the only caveat I will give there, if you're eating keto, then you don't want to do that because the carbohydrates will allow you to get more meat in. So we need to be conscious of that. I encourage people who do keto to eat meat to veg because you make sure that you finish your meat before you finish your vegetation. That way, if you do get full, it's the vegetation that stays behind. But the other thing that I will say is that I've had people who talk about being the kind of person that can just eat and eat and eat. And so that comfortably stuffed idea for them wasn't a marker because they're comfortably stuffed is probably like 3-4 steps past what a typical person's comfortably stuffed would be. And in those cases, I think knowing how much protein you're aiming for and putting that amount of food on your plate, maybe a little bit more if you want to, like, make sure you get it, just like putting that amount on your plate and just saying that's my meal, point final, is a better way to go. Because some people eat just for the sake of eating, and that's what they're trying to overcome. So the craving is actually eating and not what they're eating. And so sometimes carbs don't even matter in that story, interestingly. I cannot eat until comfortably stuffed. I will not, no doubt, eat until I get 200, even more, even on carnivore. So I guess, Chrissy, you're saying you're one of those people that you're eating more to eat and not because you're hungry. And so we need to know ourselves. I'm like, I knew myself. I knew I was the kind of person that if I tried to start keto, like cutting back, cutting back, cutting back, I would never get there, because I would play that game where I would have been in that last little bit, and I would have had the stuff coming in, and I would have been losing weight too, which would have made me feel good. I still would have had the pain, but it would have been like, well, I'm losing weight. Maybe the pain would go away eventually. And that would have been my mindset. Maybe the pain will go away eventually, because I was letting that little bit stay there. And I would have never, I don't think I would have pushed myself to get rid of it, to see that, oh, wow, no, I needed the next step. Um, so we need to know ourselves, and we need to do what's going to help us to be the healthiest we can possibly be. This is an everyday story, Wellness Warrior. And so if I know that I can just eat and not and not stop, then I need to put limits on myself. So we each need to know ourselves. Even on carnivore, I have to watch my energy intake. But I like how you're wording it, because it's about energy. It's not about calories. It's about carbohydrate intake, and it's about protein intake, and it's about fat intake. And once I understand that that's what I'm really modulating, then if I can get my carbohydrates out altogether, then this part of the story becomes, I will say, easier to manage, because I'm not chasing like I used to be. And then it's about that true conversation with myself, that I'm eating for health now. And again, going back to the real secret to permanent fat loss. What do I tell myself about what I'm doing? How is this explained in my head? Is the day that you have it explained correctly, that I eat real food, meat, fish, poultry, eggs, for health, so my body can build and repair and energize itself, and then I go off and have fun doing other things, right? My food is not all about fun anymore. Right? As soon as we do that, permanent weight loss is at your doorstep. I'm so appreciative of you letting me know that that was helpful. Thank you, DT. And Acer, looks like you're going to round it up today. I agree. I'm not into quantity, but listening to my body. Truly going to round it up. Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for this content. I appreciate everybody coming by and spending, how long have we been live? An hour and 37 minutes with me. I appreciate that. I know you have so much else you could be doing with your day. The fact that you choose to spend it here with me, I so appreciate. Everybody watching on the replay, I appreciate that too, because again, you could have been doing anything else with your day. I'm going to put a video on the screen here about the best way to start keto and to get your carbs under control and that kind of ideas. I think that's what would make the most sense from the video we talked about today, because you can do it. So let's get out there and get it done. Health is right there waiting for you. So click on this link